All right, cool. Let's see. Okay, so right, essentially from just looking at this from a directional perspective, this is reaching a region, right, where it's hard to assume that we will see something like that, right? Because although the character has changed from here to here, right, the directional bias, the overall intraday levels of structure are still bullish. Right, so for example, right, we cannot assume a reversal until we have any, a very clear break of structure. So we have a low, high, low, solidified low because, solidified high because preliminary structure was broken, low, preliminary structure is broken, high, preliminary structure, low, preliminary structure, right? Not a high, right? This is just part of the continuation leg. But, right, although this isn't a structural high here, right, this gave us, right, a type of sign or a pretty much alerted me that we could potentially see lower, even though we were seeing continuous mitigations to the upside. But that shows to me that this wanted to give us downside movement, but it didn't, right? Same thing with what happened. Same thing pretty much what happened yesterday. Kind of why I don't like the trade Mondays. This is a perfect example, right? This is very clear, a POI. The lines that we drew, the POI did reject. So it makes all the sense to assume momentum and the fact that we could see a potential pullback to then give us continuation to the downside. But here's what we have to acknowledge. One, we are still bullish. Two, this is just a continuation BOS, signifying to us the pullback of the overall leg. So just because this isn't mitigating anything from what I know of, right, even if it's not mitigating something, the directional bias, the level of structure does not change because we just had a continuation BOS. So we can only assume that price will continue higher. So what actually happened here was we had our push to the downside, right? We obviously need to begin to correct, right? But what's unfortunate here is this is the final area of interruption, which then led to an intraday break of structure, the overall continuation BOS, the overall pullback, right? This is the final time we saw one final push before we saw it move to the downside. So we see mitigation, minor reaction, nothing crazy, but then we come tap again and we tap again. That shows me weak order flow and then a disruption because we take out the POI. So this, right, even though this leads to a scalp break of structure, this is a disruption of this overall leg. So even though we're seeing the scalp BOS, right, in my opinion, this would have been a great buy area, even though we didn't reach it. So because that's the case, we are not seeing a clear mitigation to the upside, but we still see a move to the upside. I'm not going to say that's unsupported because the directional bias is still the same, right? But what we have to consider is that from an overall perspective, this is very, very overextended. So I'm not too, I'm not going to say I'm still bullish on it, even though you kind of still have to be. But I'm waiting for this to show me the direction that it wants to go. Because, for example, for all I know, this could just break structure fully. Could fully break structure. That could be it showing its hand, and then you catch a retracement to the upside, right? Or you could obviously see the final potential POI create a move to the downside, a strong intraday move to the downside, which then gives you the inclination to want to sell. But it's a bit hard to favor a sell scenario at this point, just because this is really giving me, though this box here is giving me a sign of unwillingness based on the high low retracement unwillingness. So our directional bias is showing us that we should be aiming for this high up here, which it probably will take that high out. If I'm being honest, this POI, even though it's there, I'm not too confident in it just because of how deep and overextended this leg is. So shorting from it, so if I were to short looking for the overall target being down there, doesn't really make much sense, right? And as effect, because we have unwillingness, right, we see downfall movement and continuous downfall movement, right? So I'm still, you know, in my short positions here and up here, I believe. So I don't necessarily want to add because we're super overextended, but I also don't want to pick lows. So it's just one of those positions where I'm sitting on my hands so I can see whether I'm going to see a continuation to the downside, or if I'm going to look for the reversal. But looking for the reversal is a bit hard because let's look at this from a daily perspective. Is you could say we're still bullish. Yeah, you could say we're still bullish, right? But in order for this to pull back, this needs to break major intraday structure, even potentially swing structure, which it already has there and there. Meaning that if we're looking for a smaller time frame position, anything in terms of buys is considered picking a low, even though your overall directional bias could still be bullish, right? But here's what's alerting is the fact that we have met this high and we've already created the solidified high, right? And it did not take the liquidity up here. So I'm not saying this is bearish now because this is the same scenario as what I'm saying with DXY. It's a lot harder for me to justify a sell without a proper confirmation. Hence why here, right? Remember, we weren't short here for a very long time because I was not too confident in the big retracement. Hence why my entry is closer to the end, because I'm playing the conservative play, which shows its hand, shows me the directional bias inside of the structure before it occurs, right? So even though we were bullish, I believe we were bullish here, and then we were bullish here, right? Because we were trying to pursue the liquidity resting up here, right? But unfortunately, because we had the unwillingness, we had the liquidity grab up here, and we had the break of structure to the downside here, that inclined me to sells, and that is why I am now confident in the bearish bias, because the data presented itself. The data was not presented when we were here. If I was looking at this, I'd tell you we were bullish, right? At least until a potential daily POI, at least. So it's until the data is presented, it's until price shows its hand that I'm able to capitalize on a bearish bias, because even though we're overall bullish, right, not everything will go up forever. So I hope that makes sense. Basically, in simple terms, right, I'm not favoring a sell here to here because I don't trade those deep retracements, especially when this is technically bullish, right, on a liquidity grab. So unless we are to break here, then now I am fully bearish. But because we're looking at our daily time frame, right, I can't necessarily start selling here because we're in a deep discount after an overextended leg. So it's one of those just scenarios where I'm really just sitting on my hands. I don't necessarily, outside of intraday plays, I don't necessarily have a bias to play off of. So for the intraday continuations, they're going to be there. But because I'm wanting to swing trade, I'm looking for my higher, for my longer positions. It's a lot harder to justify a position at this current point. Yes, you could say we're looking at a potential POI, or we could be looking at potential POI, right? But the question that I'm asked is, which one do you choose? You don't know. You don't know. So you play based on what's shown internally. Right? Hence why, you need something to show you a sign of bullishness before you try to assume anything like that. For example, right now, looking at a strong bullish closure, a lot of people are assuming buys, I'm assuming. Same thing, I'm assuming with EU. Right, so this here, bearish, right? Solidified low, solidified high, and we are now seeing a potential liquidity grab to the upside, and I'm pretty sure people are bullish here, which is 100% okay, because you did wait for the liquidity grab, and you did wait for that discount, and you did get a decent POI, and now you can see, I'm pretty sure you even got an M1 entry there. Yeah, you can see the M1 entries there. But the issue with taking this trade is the fact that this liquidity grab is only the beginning of the pullback of this entire leg. So from an overall perspective, it's until we clear this with strong momentum that then an entry makes sense from a conservative standpoint. From an aggressive standpoint, this makes all the sense in the world. But I promise you, if you're playing that aggressiveness, I promise you bought here. I promise you bought maybe here, right? If we're looking at EU, I promise you bought here, or maybe even here, because you saw a bullish break of structure, right? So you're hindering yourself from a perspective of hit rate if you're being that aggressive, whereas if you're being more conservative, you're trading a lot less, and you're actually pursuing those conservative entries. Yep, I bought EU today. See, why? That doesn't, why? It doesn't make sense to me. For example, Monday, break of structure, bullish, but look at the time frame we're on. This is why I say get out of these time frames. Why are you trading on, directly on these time frames without looking here? Now tell me again, is this bullish or is this not bullish? See, you sold EU. See, that's fine. From an intraday perspective, that's fine, right? But like I said, right, outside of intraday plays, this and this is already very overextended, right? So can it work out? 100%. But when you're thinking risk, right, I'm thinking, can I take the risk? And do I want to take the risk? Is the risk worth it? And is the risk rational? That's pretty much the way that, I'm kind of looking at it. Yeah, you close half your position. That's perfect. That's good management, right? But what I'm saying is, from the perspective of risk, does it really make sense to continue shorting? Maybe if you're, if you have a good model that consistently allows you to take those intraday plays, or else, you'll start seeing losses because you're selling at a deep discount. So it all just depends on you, your models, your plan, when you're trading, which, falls into your plan, but you get what I mean. The push-up was just an LG. Yeah. See, yeah, this right here. You see, I don't want to assume bullishness in a bearish market. Right, and that's a lesson that took a long time for me to pretty much force myself into, just because the majority of us want to pick that low, get that low, and get that true entry, that that pretty entry per se. And that's not the point. The point is to win consistently without losing as much as, you know, others do it, or as much as you do before. But from, you know, an overall perspective, I don't want to pick lows just yet. Even if, you know, this is the bottom and then this does end up flying from here, I don't want to pick the low just yet, because I don't think that's proper management of your risk. Right? So I hope that makes sense. Pretty much assume, I don't want to assume a low, and I don't want to be too aggressive. Right? Yeah, you're in the M15 and below 90% of the time. Everybody is, bro. That's, you know, that's kind of the thing now. Ever since, you know, our style has become super popular, I would say that all you see now is M15, M5 charts and below. It's horrible. I think it's terrible. Like, you guys have seen me call you guys out on it multiple times, and I mean, I can't really do much about it. If I'm being honest, I can't tell you exactly what to trade. You guys already have the course. You guys know the resources are there, right? So either you learn because you're lazy, or, you know, you try to get those mistakes out the way, and you actually try to be more conservative, and you actually worry about your risk profile, and you actually take, you know, the trades that make more sense. I'd rather have you learn it on yourself. I mean, by yourself. Not by yourself, but on your own. And by that, I mean, I want you to take those losses so you understand what I'm saying, right? Even though I'm telling it to you right now, right? I promise you, a lot of stuff probably won't change, even if I'm telling it to you right now. But eventually, you're just going to get sick and tired of losses and, you know, go from there. But yeah, I mean, not too much to cover today. Very sloppy. Still the same direction. Still the same. In terms of intraday, major intraday, nothing has really changed. And honestly, it probably, it might. I would say it might. I really just want to see what the next daily closure is. So tomorrow is very crucial, and we're going to see if we're going to reverse and we're going to get a good reaction to the upside, or if we're just going to keep melting, because I feel like if we keep melting this week, we'll probably just melt for the rest of the month. Trade management in what aspect?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Dude, honestly, just I'd say like the biggest aspect I'd say is like just letting my emotions get to me. Like for example, that if you go to EU,
Mm-hmm.
um, I had an entry, I think where was it? What is this, the 5 minute? Can you go on the 1 hour? So I had an entry up here, and then when I saw this, I ended up closing out like the majority of the position, the big spike up, where it was just like technically you know, an LG, and so that was just, in my opinion, you know, letting my emotions get the best of me. But yeah, so I mean, that's one thing I'm working on myself, just trying to get like ultimately just better at managing those emotions and trying to read the charts more correctly and not making that instant decision at the end of the day, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I mean, the easiest way to look at it is, why assume bullishness?
Yeah, so I mean, based off of what my thought process in the moment
Mm-hmm.
was, oh, this is a preliminary like break of structure, and especially because I saw that momentum on the opposite side.
Yeah.
It was like a big POI like on the daily
Mm-hmm.
that I had noticed as well, and so those were kind of a couple of factors that were contradicting my sell bias, but at the end of the day, it's still, you know, kind of picking a low.
Mhm.
So those were my I guess confirmations for me to close out the majority of my position. But
Yeah, I mean
you
that's
know,
yeah, I understand. I do see the momentum. This though, I don't see as a proper reaction. Let's actually see where that reacted from. No, that's so here, right? The only reference points, right? Remember, I used to have I had the zone, I think, like that, right? So for one, inefficiency, that's been tapped multiple times, not valid to me. The wick is there. There's an H8 inefficiency. So okay, so I do see. This is where you were referencing that, I believe.
yeah, exactly.
Let me see. But did it tap once already? Here? Yes, it did. It already tapped. So how does that justify, a reversal? If we tap once and we tap again. So you see high momentum, right? You do see strong volume, but the preliminary structure break is only the pullback of high, low retracement. Continuation.
The structural range is still intact.
So it's kind of hard to play against structure if you look at it from an objective standpoint.
Yeah, I took an L on EU sell today too. For I know someone else caught it. If you go to the 30-minute, there was like there was a POI that I was using just to kind of just catch a continuation. Um, yeah, right. Yeah, right there, right where you're pointing, right there. And it kicked me out literally at my stop to a T. Like I was using this POI right there to sell off of that just because of, that makes sense.
That's kind of hard to justify for me because, for example, at the time, this does look like an LG. So for me to sell here, if you're wanting to do inefficiency and point of invalidation, it's hard to justify because there's liquidity, potential LG. You could even say this is a higher time frame candle, which it looks like it. Yeah, it is. So this could be bouncing to take out liquidity. So the only way I would have taken a trade here is if the liquidity is met, internal break of structure, and gives me a sign of bearishness, and then that's the continuation there. Because that is actually what happened, I believe, here. Let's see.
And that's where I was confused because like I saw that it came up to because based off my rules that I have set in place, it's like for me to have it be like a true liquidity grab, I would like to me it made relative equal highs as opposed to actually being a liquidity grab. So then it was invalidated to me. So I just kind of left it alone.
So the only way I would have taken a trade here, definitely, if we took the liquidity and then we broke the preliminary structure. Right, because this would have been a decent entry, but even though you already created the structural range there, I don't want to force it because my model would want me to have the liquidity grab go first, right? Even though there already is a new structural range intact. So I would have just passed on it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's super subjective. All depends on what you're trading, how you're trading it, when you're trading it. So,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying because I know a couple people in the group caught it, and so I'm sure there's
yeah, you see, like I don't catch the same trades as they do. They don't catch the same trades I do. Just depends what you're looking for and how you're looking for it. We can only assume. Yeah, it is misleading. So the thing is what is the first thing that is taught? What is the first legitimate thing that's taught in the course? Right, ignoring the introduction phase. And why do you think that's the first thing that's learned? The thing is, bro, is in LG, in LG that's counter trend isn't necessarily an LG. It's just the beginning of a pullback. But if you have an LG that's pro trend, then that is a high probability scenario. That's kind of what my model is built around. Yeah, because it's the foundation. Yeah, yeah. So even though it's technically a valid LG, it's counter trend, so it's a pullback of high low because we're still bearish. So even though it's not a substantial new low, you cannot ignore the structure.
Yeah, I meant this liquidity grab you mentioned, so this one right here.
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. See, that's something yeah, that makes a lot more sense. So if you're playing this, and now you're starting to zoom in, right? You could see the setup here. Right, you could see the setup there. That is a very good play because you're playing an LG, right? You take 1 high, 2 high, 3 high, a ton of liquidity is taken, and you have the internal structure break. So the internal structure is in correlation, in harmony with the overall structure. So that creates a high probability trade. You see what I mean? And so this is now when you can emphasize, you know, if a POI is hit and met, it will never come back. That's when you can emphasize stuff like that. That's when you can easily move your SL a lot quicker, because in reality, price won't come back. Right, so you see how the internal structure is in harmony with the overall structure, which creates a high probability scenario. That's pretty much what that's showing. Because I know somebody's in this trade. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure I saw someone. Yeah, very nice. See, that's a very good trade. That's a very good study. And that met the target, I believe. Last night, yeah. Or today in session met target. So you see how if you were to even get a 2 to 3 pip here, 3.5 pip, you still get 60 pips sitting outside. Yeah, but structure. Oh, 219, very nice. 2-1. Yeah, that's very nice. And that's a high probability scenario. So you see, what else did you see that I'm not pointing out for the people that got in that? What else are you guys, what else supported that? Volume as well. Okay, I do see that. I see it right here. Probably wouldn't have used volume here because it's still very high, but structure is enough for me. Oh, 1 second. Let's see. Okay. I see what you mean now. Yeah, I see what you mean now. I see what you mean. Not distribution. No, not at all. But yeah, the volume, I see what you mean now. Very nice. And if you got in here, this is a ridiculous SL right here. That's how you get your 2 pip. Premium discount disruption? What do you mean?
So I have a question regarding exactly this situation you're pointing out right now. So when I'm taking a short right here,
is your question? Let me see if your question is that. That's your
Exactly.
question,
So
isn't it?
when thinking solidified highs and lows, at this point maybe I technically know. So in case for that being a solidified low, it needs to take this high out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can basically disregard all shorts from here.
Well, not necessarily. Can you delete your drawings, please? Let's look at this right here. So it's the same thing here. Right, technically, because you take this out, you are bullish. In terms of order flow and internal structure, you are bullish because this is taken out. And that was because it wanted to meet that POI on top. So here's what you have to notice is that there is, what is that? What is this right here? No, that's not disruption. No, that's, no. We just talked about this. It's the same principle. It's literally what we just talked about. And LG, thank you. It's the same thing here, right? You can see that there is a push down for the move up, and you can see that there is a break there, meaning the preliminary structure broke. This is now a solidified high, and this is now a potential LG. And because you're reacting from here, right, it makes all the sense for you to either try to take a position based on maybe here, point of invalidation, or let me delete all this right here. Right, so this is building a bearish narrative. So if I'm not, so this, what's happening in here on a seconds time frame has built the narrative. So now this move has given me a move to the downside. So this is now taking out preliminary structure here. This is now unwillingness, right? So if you're wanting to be that conservative and you're not wanting to play just because we broke this, you have a solidified high inside of a bearish structural range, inside of a bearish structural range. So the conservative entry is there with your point of invalidation being here. Right, so that's the conservative way of going about it. So this is your continuation of order flow, but you have to acknowledge, right, that there is POI 1 and then there's POI 2. You could easily see this, right? You could easily, for example, if you're wanting to be conservative about it, this could be a potential, this would not be a conservative entry for one, so I would not sell from here to begin with. Or you could wait for this to happen. You could wait for the preliminary structure to break, the final potential POI to break, right? And you now have an internal leg. Even though we haven't created a new low, we have broken internal structure. So we now have structural range that broke structure, which the last move that, you know, moved to the upside, that's been broken, right? And this is now the continuation of order flow. This move to the upside has solidified this high. So this unwillingness that breaks preliminary structure gives us the bearish narrative. So now you can easily play on the M1 inefficiency, or you can even play on the 30-second inefficiency. But your point of invalidation, right, depending on whether or not you have seconds time frames, for example, if you only have M1, then your SL is here. But if you have 30 seconds and you can see this, then this SL makes a lot more sense. So it really just depends on how your model is set up and how conservative you want to be. Okay, yeah, see, this is not an SC for me. Not an SC, but I would play the inefficiency there. But yeah, that's another way of looking at it, because for example, you see the disruption here, and this is an even more conservative entry, which gave you a better SL than what's being presented here. Yep, so let's actually, let me look at this 2-minute. Yeah. Yeah, even a 3-minute candle here. See, this I would consider a valid candle. There. I just don't like when an M1 candle pushes up and then you have something stall and then it moves. Meaning that the POI is actually inside of this candle. But this is very complex, if I'm being honest. This is very complex when you're, because we can't be too worried about here if it doesn't make sense from an overall perspective. Yeah, I see that. I see that. But unless you guys have some more questions, I hope that that explanation made sense though. Cool. All right, cool. So do you guys have any more questions, or are we good here? But yeah, that's a very nice trade though for the people that actually got in that. That's very nice. I like that. I like that entry. I like that scenario. Yes, of course, of course. But yeah, I have some things to take care of, so I'll see you guys on Friday. Yeah, I'm gonna do DMs later today. Don't worry about that. I just gotta take care of some stuff right now. For sure, for sure. All right, you guys take care, all right?